From crypto to SME banking. With my next panelists, I would like to discuss digital financial solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. And for this topic, we've invited Sibylle Strack, Chief Growth Officer, BizBanking at Deutsche Bank. Right there. Welcome on stage. Hello, Sibylle. Wherever you want to. Just you're the first, so you get to choose. In the middle. Maximilian Riege, COO at Penta. Welcome. Hello. And Torben Rabe, Country Director at Conto, Germany. Welcome on stage. So, yeah, you go ahead here, and I change sides so we have some different perspectives. Are you here? You have your microphone. Let me start out with a more general question, and you're invited to disagree with whatever the other person says. What does your company, your business, differentiate from each of the others here on the panel? I would like to start with you, Sibylle. What are you doing differently?
Well, first of all, Deutsche Bank definitely consists of 3 brands in the SME area, which is Deutsche, Postbank, and First. So we have some differentiation in there. And at Deutsche, we are definitely offering a broad spectrum palette of products and services that is not only addressing the classical SME account and payment area, but also treasury, financing, loans. And in some parts, we also go deeper. So we do have some sort of built-in verticals, if you will. We have something called Heilberufe vertical, if you will. And then we do have special services for law practices. So there is a vertical or 2 verticals at least within our area. And also, I'd say we do offer really impeccable customer service with a lot of, from a lot of people 24/7. And you are being consulted by trained bankers, which is, to my knowledge, a little bit of a difference to what the usual digital challenger does. And also, I could go on forever, obviously, but we also take care of the private needs of our customers in terms of private banking and retail banking. And also when the entrepreneur decides to leave his or her business, then we do succession planning and handover.
What do you reply, Torben?
So what makes Conto kind of stand out? So I think the first point is a fully digital product that was developed in the last few years with our own core banking system, which allows us to react relatively quickly to changing customer needs and to adapt to it. That also means, the second point, more connectivity. So we have over 100 integrations that customers ask for and what they need to do their daily business finance management. And I would say the third point is the European presence. So in terms of, we're currently present in 4 markets, in France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And we serve over 250,000 business customers. And I think the ability to change between the countries, toggle, and kind of have one view in your product is really unique. So combining the digital experience on the one hand with a European presence is what stands out.
Maximilian, what's your USP?
I would say we at Penta consider us as the digital CFO of our customers. So we really have our customers in mind all the time, since 90% actually of small and medium enterprises in Germany don't even have a financial department, and 99% don't have a CFO. So we don't only help them with the classical banking products, but also go much deeper with regard to accounting services. We help them with insurances via our platform strategy. So beyond the classic banking, we consider open banking and beyond banking really the key to help our customers the most. And we combine that with a strong partnership strategy via our platform. So we don't need to provide all the services ourselves at Penta, but we provide a good partnership network that our customers can then use.
Mm. Neobanks are pretty well entrenched when it comes to retail banking. What's the state of play, maybe the two of you, when it comes to business banking?
Yeah. Happy to start. I would say past is prologue, right? So what we have seen in the retail banking sector over the last years, to mention perhaps N26, Revolut, we see a strong movement of customers, the digital natives, going from the classic branches in their hometown where they live to use more digital banking offers. And the same is happening in the business sector. We have the same founders, entrepreneurs that were digital natives or are digital natives and are now grown up founding their own companies. We see that business processes get digitalized much more than before. So therefore, I think the banks, the classic banks, to say it perhaps that way, Deutsche Bank or the private banks, the Sparkassen, Volksbanken, Raiffeisenbanken, they all see that process. So it's not that, I mean, they stick to where they were 20 years ago or 10 years ago. They are also digitalizing their services. But I think our big asset as a challenger of the incumbents is that we started in the digital age. So we don't have a lot of legacy costs. We don't have the big infrastructure that needs to transform into the digital age. We started with that. And therefore, I think we are here to stay.
Torben, and then Sibylle gets the chance to reply.
Sure. There's a lot of things that I agree with. So generally, I think there are similarities of the B2C market environment that we now see in the B2B space. Why is that? Because there's a lot of potential in the market as well. If you look at the European market, for example, there's 25 million SMEs, 15 million in the 4 markets where we're in, or 3.4 million in Germany alone. So there's a big potential, and not just for fintech, but a lot of different industries that are now focusing a lot on the B2B space with their digital offerings. So there's a big potential, and we do clearly see different players entering into the market, and that's a good thing ultimately for the customers. I think what we've seen in terms of trend is more kind of the request to have a connected offering. So people and customers, they want to do their finance management all in one place. And it goes to the accounting, it goes to their cash flow management, to their bookkeeping, that they want to prepare all in one place. And I think that's a development that we see there. In terms of how it compares and what the overall market looks like, I think there's still a way to go for digital players. So a lot of the market is still dominated by traditional banks, to be frank. However, we do see that development, and we see, for example, two things. On the one hand, there's a lot of almost half of the kind of the companies that do not have a digital bank at the moment are considering switching. And on the other hand, there's a lot of demand for these add-on financial services as well. And on the customer service side, I totally agree with Maximilian as well. So there's a big demand for this kind of customized customer service, also a lot of availability, where we at Conto, for example, have also the 7 days a week, 24/7 availability through email, chat, telephone. And that's really a development that has accelerated not just through COVID, but also before, where customers are used from a B2C space, certain patterns and certain services that are offered, and then now kind of expecting them in a consumerized B2B space, I would say. So it's very important to offer that customer service level to that degree.
Sibylle, who is better equipped, neobanks or traditional banks? Do you want to reply to that?
Yeah, I'm not the person to say what is better or not. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the customer who is deciding. And obviously, I think we all want the same, but we come from different angles. Obviously, well, you from the digital side, coming from the digital side, are just building your offering, and you are not there where Deutsche is, and Deutsche might not be there in the digital space yet where you are. So it's from different angles. However, when you look at, because your question was about SME banking, the neo-banking, and if you look at Germany, I think it's really hard to, not to build, but to scale. So N26 was successful or is successful because there's a lot of customers coming to N26. This won't work in the SME area. read my lips, this won't work, right? You need to build the infrastructure, or you need to partner with Roland Volz from Solaris. But at the end of the day, it's a scale game. And as it turns out, and well, we'll see how all that plays out, but it's not going to scale like it is scaling in, for example, the UK, or maybe also in France, where Conto comes from. And I think also you are coming from different angles. So you're partnering with Solaris, like I did with my old company. But you have to obviously then, kick back a lot of what you're earning to your banking partner, and there you need scale.
Not too much.
And you own your stack, which is cool, and that I think works well. So you're scaling via internationalization, and so obviously a lot of different angles. There is no one better or worse. I mean, at the end of the day, the customer will decide, right? And you were saying that more customers are deciding to join a digital bank. The question is what for? Because at the end of the day, what you need as an SME customer is someone who solves your problems in a broad spectrum sometimes. So we'll see how that turns out, but I'm super happy to, be in the business with you guys.
Well, that's good to start with, but when we talk about clients, there's a different client in Germany, there's a different client in France, in Spain, in Italy. So when you expand to different markets with special needs according to the country, to culture, whatever, what are the challenges there?
I mean, happy to start, Torben. You have more experience with Conto already, but I think we had an adventure in Italy some time ago. Of course, internationalization strategy is on our focus. I think you need to prepare well because, as you said, every market is different. And Germany, coming from a very fragmented market with a lot of individual business centers. This is different in other countries, but some countries like Spain, for example, have a similarity there with a strong comunidades autónomas, right? The regional states. Another aspect, though, beyond the consumer part and understanding, of course, what the consumers need, I think is something that banks and fintechs also need to consider. That's the regulation. And I think we have Commissioner McGuinness on stage later. And this is really one of the key aspects, I think, to boost the fintech and startup system in the European Union is to come to a really harmonized single market, especially when it comes to also banking regulation, so for our sector. If you think about that, currently we still have 27 countries with different regulations for onboarding our customers. This is something that is a huge burden, especially for startups, smaller players who don't have the big backbone already in their company. If we want to scale in a different country, we cannot do that with the exact same tools that we use in Germany. We need to adjust to the other countries. And there, of course, incumbent banks have an advantage for two reasons. They are already bigger and often there. So they had years of experience and are ahead of us in that area. But the other aspect is also it's a lock-in effect for the customer to change a bank, because the more difficult onboarding in general is, the less likely it is to change from one bank to the other. Therefore, digitalization all across the board and harmonization of the regulatory requirements, I think, is as important to boost the fintech sector as it is, of course, to understand your clients.
Anything to add, Torben?
I think the harmonization of the regulatory landscape was also a topic yesterday in the pre-event, and I agree. So there's different requirements in the European Union, and it should be more harmonized because it adds friction to when you internationalize within Europe. And we do consider us a European company. We want to scale more. Generally, what we did and how we try to internationalize so far is we're, as I said, in four international markets, and we launched pretty much at the same time to learn from the different markets and to gather the learnings, and to also consider the different local specifics. And the learnings from that is to be local on a lot of different levels. First and foremost, of course, on the regulatory level, to consider that super essential. Without that, you couldn't offer your services. on the second level, to consider the customer needs in each country and to basically export your customer-centric view in each country. And there are specific needs that we see in the different markets. One of them in Spain, for example, there are the strong traditional banks with their free offers as well. So it's a tough market to only compete on that. In France, you have something like checks, for example. In Germany, you have more of a cash focus. So there's different aspects that you need to consider. And the way we try to do it is to adapt the product as much as possible. There's no one-size-fits-all approach that you can run here. But then on the other hand, also to work a lot with partnerships in the respective market to build the trust from the customer on the one hand, to also offer the product that customers need. When we think about Datev in Germany, for example, an integration and a partnership is super essential. Without that, you couldn't be considered. So these are kind of the things that you need to do over time. And for Qonto, it has worked well so far. So our approach of understanding ourselves as a European company is really true in that sense. So the 4 markets are really key for us.
So with that experience, would you do it again if you could, like expand into 4 different countries at the same time?
I think now that we gathered the learnings of the go-to-market strategy and so on, I think it would be more of a sequential approach. I think the focus, first and foremost, is on growing in our 4 core markets now, with a special focus also on Germany, because you cannot consider yourself really a European company if you're not successful in the German market, being the biggest economy in Europe. So I think that's the main focus. But then afterwards, we're open to other market launches as well.
Yeah, I super like what you're just saying, because at the end of the day, the question is, well, first of all, if you don't earn your money yourself, i.e. if you're a startup and you have investors, obviously they want to hear like the whole story, and the whole story always consists of this internationalization thing, right? But then at the end of the day, it's about, well, it's 2022 and different countries are having different customers, they're having different needs, but I mean, there is like 1 or 2 other clever people in the respective other country that might have thought of already offering something. So before you even think of going out, first of all, you have to have your shit together in your home market, I'd say. And there's so much more you can still do for an SME customer, you know, going all in for accounting, or my old company, for example, doing automated tax accounting now. And then you can think of what is your competitive mode and why, what are you doing like brilliantly and much better than anyone else who is already in that country, right? So internationalization, I find always to be a bit, it totally distracts the company. If you haven't gotten everything or done everything in your home country, then you shouldn't go out. But it's something that obviously investors always want.
But having the shit together in your own country, in Germany, would that be easier for a traditional bank before expanding than a neobank?
I think it's independent of who you are, basically. It's all, have you done enough? Have you made all your customers happy? Have you thought of everything that he or she needs in order to thrive in their businesses? And then you can think of going out. So I'm always skeptical when someone really, you know, says, yeah, we've started here. Well, we will spend 2 years here, and then we think of the whole world. In the SME area, I think it's a scaling game that still has to be proven.
Torben, you wanted to reply?
I just think internationalization, you don't just do it to access the additional markets. I think it's also to gather the learnings from the different markets and to also be able to offer your services for companies, especially in Germany, that have international presence. So I think that's really a big requirement for German companies who are a lot focused on exports within the European Union as well and abroad, to also be able to offer that service within the different countries and to easily switch to say, okay, this is my French entity and this is my Spanish, Italian entity. How is it looking on the bank account there? So I think it's not just about accessing the addressable market in those respective markets, but also to be able to deliver on the European approach.
Exactly, but that's the follow your customers, and if your customer happens to be an international company, you have to provide services, and this is basically where Deutsche is at.
We're now talking about neobanks kind of versus traditional banks. What about competition? Where do you see a perspective there? Where's the value, cooperations between fintechs and traditional banks? Maximilian, you're nodding.
Yeah, because this is exactly the Penta method, right? I already alluded earlier to our platform strategy. So, for example, we are providing deposit solutions for our customers, not because we are providing this or Solaris is providing this, but some of our partner banks like SWK Bank, until a few months ago, Raisin Bank and others, provided those services to us. So I think it's exactly as you said, there's a healthy competition between startup or neobanks and the incumbent banks, which is good. I think everyone is benefiting from it. We can learn from the incumbent banks how they did it. I mean, Deutsche Bank is more than 100 years old. I'm happy to, I won't be here when they are 100 years old, but of course that's a trajectory or a good perspective for us. On the other hand, the incumbent banks learned a lot from the challengers directly how to digitalize businesses. And the best thing is, again, if you see that something what can be done better by one of the partners, why should you build it yourself if you know it would be either very, very costly and you might not even reach that level of excellence of a partner who has specialized in that for several decades even, then it's better for the customer to partner because in the end, of course, we all want to make money, but we only make money if our customers are happy on the long term. And therefore, we have those services in the banking sector, in the insurance sector, where we partner with Signal Iduna, one of the major German insurers. We won't start offering insurances now. We are happy if we can start offering banking products. But our customers, when they need insurance for their business, via our platform, they can go to Signal Iduna, get very good rates there. Signal Iduna might even get a pre-check from us with regard to the risk status or the KYC data. And this way everyone benefits and therefore the revenue increases and the customer's happy.
Sibylle, competition?
Well, obviously, as I said before, we are having a broad range of products already. For the ones that we don't deliver ourselves, we do have the same, strategy, if you will.
Can you give specific examples?
Of course. I mean, obviously, we are partnering with LexOffice for accounting, with LexOffice, Safdesk, and Sage. For insurances, for example, cybersecurities, we are partnering with Perseus. We are offering Mietkautionskonten with kautionsfrei.de. So there's and so on and so forth. So we are not building everything ourselves, but also for the areas where we think that we need some additions to our products, we also partner. Would we partner with Penta or with Qonto? Well, obviously, first, our digital challenger is around, so why should we? Let me ask it that way, but I'd never say no to anything. This is what you learn in the fintech and the banking area. You never say no to anything. But I mean, first, we do have our own digital challenger with, I think, almost 40,000 customers of today. So, well, I see these two as, Marktbegleiter, very nice German word, not to say competitors, but I'm also seeing you guys as impulse givers, basically, for also getting our products and services better, faster, more digital and the like. So we do partner with fintechs. Do we partner with direct competition? Leaving this open.
Yeah.
How do you view that, Torben?
I think the question is not on competition, neobanks versus traditional banks or partnerships there. I think it's generally how you can collaborate and be open to offer the best product and services to the customers that are changing a lot. So how can you keep up the velocity with the change in customer needs and be connected and to offer the integrations that customers need. So some were already mentioned in terms of LexOffice. We also have that with Datev, with more deeper connections with Iwoka, for example, on the credit side. I think those are really crucial things that customers are expecting, and we should be pragmatic about what can we best do ourselves and where do we use the best solution in the market. In the example for us, how we started for our core banking system, for example, we worked with a partner first, with Tresor back in the day, and then over time, as we scaled, we were also able to build it ourselves to have that product offering, and it helps us a lot with building new features faster, more reliable, and to have the unit economics more on our side. So I think the future there is to be open, no matter what the partnership is, to also focus on the integrations that customers need from a product side, but also more from a different use case side. So,
well, you were talking about pragmatism, and I think many startups are interested in that too. When it comes to cooperations, you're watching each other, seeing things. Who makes the first step? Who's picking up the phone? Who's writing a letter or an email? Like in a very practical way, coming down from a meta level, saying, how does that happen? Are there platforms? Are there networks? How's that happening? Please share.
It's an interesting question. I think it differs depending on who you are and who the partner is. I think in our case, we're reaching out to basically looking at, okay, what do we need? What are our customers asking for? So we're checking regularly with our existing customers, also with our new customers. Okay, what are the demands? What would you like? And then based on that, we would look at different partners and what we could do. So I think that's the first step, thinking about what you could do, because there's a lot of different things that you can do, but you really need to focus on one thing at a time. So I think being pragmatic also means focusing on certain things that you want to offer and build up then sequentially afterwards.
Sibylle, would you agree?
Yeah, basically the same approach. It's about, cutting the noise, looking at what your customers need, and then follow it. Because obviously there's so many offerings by, startups, traditional companies. You need to focus on. You need to come from the customer needs and not do anything that is there, because opportunistically there's so much around. You have to really focus on building it according to what your customer tells you and not what you think is good for your customer.
So we're talking about initiating cooperations. At what point would one say, okay, we're not, bringing benefits to each other anymore? At what point would you say, let's end this? This is over.
Well, it happens all the days, right? I mean, you often do some trials with companies, and then you decide, well, although we put some marketing in, we put word of mouth in, our sales people are all in, it doesn't work. So we need to, cut it here, or, at least, just leave it on in a passive way, or we cut it completely.
Anything to add, Maximilian?
Yeah, no, I think it's also a business decision. You will need to see sometimes one company outgrows the other. Sometimes you start seeing that you need other products or another focus area. I think there's no difference in the banking or fintech sector than in every other sector. At some point, you reconsider the market and the needs, and then you check if you're still right on top with what you offer and what your partner offers, or you move along separately. I think that's a normal way.
All right.
I think what also helps is if you have these partnership discussions at the very beginning to agree on what the success metrics are and what the success would look like. And based on that, you can make the business decision over time. So I think a lot of the partnership learnings that we gathered over time that it really helps to agree on one goal that both partners are trying to achieve. And based on that, if you're not fulfilling that, it makes sense to revisit.
And then it can be a mutual decision in the end.
But it doesn't only work with external partners. I mean, sometimes you just, obviously Deutsche with a broad range of products, we sometimes do some trials with some, features, internal features that were built by ourselves. And if they don't work, they're not continued.
Well, thanks a lot for this really interesting insight that you gave. Are there any questions from the audience by now? Is there anything you want to know? If not, you can also use the breaks, and always approach the panelists. Well, thanks a lot for being here and for joining the conference today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.